Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. The inclusion delusion. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. 6 days after Donald Trump won the presidency, many on the left are still angry and depressed. Thousands are protesting in the streets, believing they will soon be victims of oppression or something not good. Most of the demonstrators are peaceful, some are not. Today in Los Angeles, hundreds of school kids walked out of class, showing their disdain for the election. Be interesting to hear what is bothering these students. I suspect many of them have been inspired by immigration activists who have been working the West Coast very hard. Apart from wanting open immigration, one of the main beefs on the left is that the philosophy of inclusion is endangered by Trump.
It's irrational for people to say they voted for Trump for change when in reality the very policies that President Obama put in place actually helped whites and blacks and Latinos. And what I believe is that when you have fear rooted in racism, it's irrational.
America, at its best, is inclusive and not exclusive. That we insist on the dignity and God-given potential and worth of every child.
I've heard everything from kids afraid to go to school because they're not sure their parents will be home when they get there. I've heard some families talk about not going to work. I've heard some people afraid to walk the streets because they may look like they're Muslim.
Apparently, the anti-Trump people believe that 8 years of the Obama administration have brought about an American unification, that we are basically harmonious in this country. And now, all that harmony has been dissolved because Trump was elected. Is it me, or is that point of view about as strange as Kanye West wanting to run for the White House? Fact is, more than 60 million Americans do not feel that President Obama included them in his grand left-wing vision. Thus, they voted against continuing his legacy by giving power to Mr. Trump. Stated clearly, there is not a man on this earth more opposite Barack Obama than Donald Trump. 60 million folks, a huge crew. And again, many of them feel excluded, not included by the president's policies. Now let's get specific. It is not inclusive to spit in the eye of religious Americans by forcing Catholic nuns to fund birth control and promoting abortion without limits. I think all sane people would agree that's not inclusive to Americans who hold sincere beliefs on life. Same thing with forcing Americans to pay more for health insurance so the poor can have free or subsidized health care with no strings attached. That's good for the have-nots, but millions of working Americans are not included in the benefits of Obamacare. They're hurt by higher premiums and lack of medical choices. It is not inclusive to ignore the hard drug epidemic in America that's shattering families and killing thousands, while diverting the attention of the Justice Department into controversies like who can use which bathroom. Then there's illegal immigration. I hope the kids in LA will listen up. It is not inclusive to fail to monitor the workplace so that foreign nationals who have no right to be here can waltz on in and secure jobs. That excludes American citizens from fair marketplace competition because many illegal immigrants work cheaper, thus driving down salaries. The fantasy of open borders is not inclusive when most Americans strongly reject that concept. On the safety front, it is not inclusive to fail to protect the poor in Chicago from the murderous gang violence there that's been going on for years, while the city fathers do absolutely nothing to contain it. My family is protected from gang violence, but that is not the case for millions of inner city residents all over the country. Therefore, many urban folks, mostly poor, are not included in effective public safety policies. Likewise, failing to protect all Americans from illegal alien felons who defy deportation is not inclusive. There should be zero tolerance for these people. Instead, cities like San Francisco harbor them, excluding all law-abiding Americans from the protection they deserve and pay for through tax levies. Children in bad schools are not included in quality education, are they? The left fights desperately against charter schools and vouchers for the poor, which would give low-income families school choice. Memo to the progressive community: opposing school competition is not inclusive at all. Hating your neighbor because he or she holds different life views is not inclusive. Despising white or black or Asian or Hispanic votes is not inclusive. Disparaging gays is not inclusive. But forcing business people to support gay nuptials when their religious beliefs are challenged is not inclusive either. We have a long history of conscientious objection in this country, do we not? It is not inclusive for government to target the assets of successful Americans while demonizing them like Bernie Sanders does. Fair share contains the word fair. Achievers in America, if they are honest, deserve applause, not derision based on jealousy and entitlement. It is not inclusive to punish those Americans with assets by seizing their property after death and imposing a hyper-taxation on them. Reasonable taxation is necessary. Gouging is oppressive and not inclusive. Finally, the national media in this country generally excludes traditional Americans from fair play. They mock and demean conservative folks, sometimes even branding them racist, sexist, haters of one group or another. This awful trend is championed on the net, which pretty much excludes anyone who is not liberal from inclusion in the good person club. Nothing the government can do about that other than criticize dishonest and hateful reporting. But apart from Fox News, President Obama offered little criticism of the media that generally adores him. So, you are living in a fantasy world if you think the liberal administration of the past 8 years has encouraged inclusion. It has not. And the millions of Americans who were excluded by the Obama administration have now put an end to the inclusion delusion. And that's the memo. Next on the rundown, reaction from two liberal thinkers. The Factor is coming right now. Impact segment tonight, reaction to the Talking Points memo. Joining us from Washington, Richard Goodstein, Democratic strategist, and Garland Nixon, radio talk show host, also Democrat. I have to tell the audience, guys, that we gave you the Talking Points memo. We really, we usually don't do that, okay? But because there's so much in it, to be fair, I wanted you guys to read it, maybe take some notes. So, Mr. Nixon, we'll begin with you. Where am I going wrong?
Well, I think where you're going wrong is that, number one, you're kind of interpreting this as a reflection on the Obama administration, and I actually think that it's bigger than that. I think this was really about Hillary Clinton. That if you look at the numbers, the people across the Rust Belt that put Donald Trump over the edge, many of them voted for Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012. So they were actually voting for something far different than inclusion. I think it ended up being about money. I think it ended up being about jobs. And the other point I would make is, even when you talk about the poor people in the inner cities who are suffering from crime, et cetera, don't forget, the word is poor there. I think both parties need to look at this election and reflect on the fact that it came down to money, jobs, poverty, income inequality.
All right, but that wasn't my thrust. So maybe Mr. Goodstein. My thrust was the protesters, the people who won't accept the election in the streets. They're screaming that Trump is not inclusive. All right, it wasn't an analysis of why people voted the way they voted. It's what's happening now. Go ahead, Mr. Goodstein.
Well, again, let's start with the premise that Hillary Clinton will end up having gotten millions more votes.
That's just a waste of our time, Mr. Goodstein. Do you have anything on the inclusive stuff or
more
not?
People voted for her. Bill,
so what?
More people will have.
So what?
Okay.
I have better suits than you do. What difference does it make? Stay on the memo.
If Trump. Okay, I'm just saying there's a significance to that because you're assuming that somehow there's this majority. I would say
I'm assuming that what I said is correct. More than 60 million Americans voted out the inclusive party. And the protesters are now screaming, you don't want inclusion, when they were never included in the first place. Go ahead.
Bill, the reason I think that they're feeling now left out is they're scared. They've actually now gone back and looked at what Donald Trump said. And with regard to all the statistics that you rattled off, they felt included because incomes were up, jobs were up. Healthcare costs actually were down relative to what was projected at the end of the Bush administration.
This is propaganda, Mr. Goodstein.
No,
All right,
it's
Mr.
not.
Nixon, let's
Those
get
are
back.
facts,
Mr.
Bill.
Goodstein,
Okay.
look, it's just propaganda. Black home ownership is down. Okay, median income is about flat after 8 years. Don't give me
Well,
this
it's up
crap.
now.
Don't give me
It's up now.
Don't give me the propaganda. I'm not listening to it. Mr.
Okay,
Nixon,
fine.
you want to stay
That's
on the
always a good way to
memo?
proceed, is not listen to facts.
Okay, and
Look,
here's
it's
another
your
thought on
propaganda facts, and we're tired of it. Go to what I said. 60 million people are saying we were not included in this inclusive administration. Mr. Nixon, go.
A couple of things. Number one, I think that one of the reasons we're having this issue now with the people out on the street is because they're afraid, right? And to be quite honest, I kind of blame the mainstream media for a lot of that. We've had a last year of people, our mainstream media, horrifying, terrifying the people, telling them you have to be afraid of Donald Trump. And I think now Donald Trump's got elected, and now what you have is a mass of terrified people. And I think it was irresponsible all along to do that. I really believe that a lot of the media, which was, let's face it, if you paid attention to the WikiLeaks, a lot of the mainstream media was, kind of under the thumb of the Clinton administration. They were working on her behalf, and they scared everybody, trying to scare them over to her.
I don't disagree with that, but I want to get back to the core thing. Let's focus on these kids who walked out of class in Los Angeles today. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. They're being told by whomever, their teachers, the administrators, whoever, that this guy, Trump, he didn't like you. He didn't like you because you're Hispanic. He didn't like you because you're black or you're poor, whatever it may be. All right. And you're not included in this Trump administration. So these kids, as you said, and I think that's true, Mr. Nixon, are afraid. They're afraid, oh no, what's going to happen to
Bill,
me? Go ahead, Mr. Goodstein.
Let me look. Let's give these kids some credit. Let's actually imagine that they kind of were watching the news over the past year, and they heard Bush father and son and Romney and Colin Powell call Trump a racist, bigot, xenophobe, misogynist, and con artist. You can't really lay this on mainstream media. Incidentally, they gave Donald Trump $2 billion in free airtime. That's not exactly freezing him out. So you can't really lay on these kids some somehow addled view when it was leading Republicans that were basically saying all those things
Well, I'll submit
about
to
him.
you
Forget
that the
anything
kids
Hillary
aren't
Clinton said.
zeroed in on what's going on in the debates or in the micro of political science. They're hearing things. But these kids, and I'd love to talk to some of them, these kids have no idea about what the other side is experiencing. Why 60 million people said, you know what, had enough of this. And believe me, it was a repudiation of Barack Obama. It wasn't just a repudiation of Hillary Clinton. It was like, we don't feel part of this country anymore. How many times have I gotten a letter that said, where's my country gone? Now, that may be legitimate or illegitimate based upon your political point of view, but it's real. And that's what I articulated. Mr. Nixon, last word, go.
The other thing about these kids is, you think now if a child grew up, 8 years ago, if they've grown up over the last 8 years, for most of their lives that they knew what was going on, Barack Obama was president. So they have kind of a certain expectation of the way things are to be regarding inclusion. And I think now they're afraid because they don't know anything else, and they've been scared by a lot of people.
Fear is legitimate. I understand that. But the other side is not being given any precedence at all in schools and academia or anything like that. Gentlemen, we appreciate it. Directly ahead, there have been some right-wing hate incidents. How widespread are they? Then later, will President Trump crack down on cities like New York and LA that will not enforce immigration law? Those reports after these messages. Unresolved Problem segment tonight, bigotry, this time on the right. Last night on 60 Minutes, Lesley Stahl asked Donald Trump. Now, Ms. Stahl did not specify who's harassing Latinos or anything like that, so the factor investigated. Here's what we found out. Last week, a student at the York County School in Pennsylvania shouted white power in the hallways. A student was identified, not charged, but 3 kids, including that student, were suspended in the fracas. The only other incident that's been confirmed, that means authorities have issued statements about it, was in Royal Oak, Michigan, where some middle school students did this. There is a list of bias allegations on the right that are being investigated, but responsible news agencies cannot define those until the facts are known. As we saw in the recent Project Veritas video, political dirty tricks people can do that stuff all day long. Joining us now from Irvine, California, Brian Levin teaches criminal justice at California State University. So you're an expert in this field, Professor. And we're not seeing specific hate situations on the right anything like the demonstrations in Portland, Oregon, or other cities around the country on the left. So do you have any other information? Can you make a moral equivalency?
Well, not so much a moral equivalency, but I think there's a definitional issue. And one is we have seen attacks relating to Trump supporters, vandalisms of cars outside of Trump rallies, Trump supporters being victimized. But I would say that the sheer number of unofficial yet reported anecdotal incidents is not merely a cover or a cloud or a series of hoaxes. You don't have to get a National Weather Service bulletin when you see a cow flying over your barn to know that there's a tornado.
All right, but wait a minute. Wait.
Sure.
You know about the Veritas video, right? You know about the undercover video that showed that this crew sent people into Trump rallies to promote violence, and they were masquerading as Trump supporters. You know about that. You know about the people in Chicago who beat up the Trump voter, because we did that on Friday.
And in Portland.
Yeah, all that. But I'm looking. We really looked hard, Professor. I mean, we scoured. All right, arrests, and that's pretty much what tells the tale. Arrests of the swastika painted, arrests of Hispanics or blacks being hectored by a white person. There aren't any. They don't exist.
Well, but as a matter of FBI criteria, we don't need an arrest to label something as
but
a
then you
potential.
Can't say who did it.
Wait,
you can't say who did it with any accuracy at all. You can't.
If I may, we can say that when someone firebombed a Republican office in North Carolina, that it's a probable act of terrorism. And by the same token, when we have swastikas, and we have at the University of Pennsylvania, where I went, when we have all the black freshmen getting put into white supremacist internet site and things like that, and the FBI is investigating. I don't think we have to leave our common sense at the door.
You would see that individual lunatics can never be stopped, and that's what this stuff is. Anybody who paints a swastika on anything is an individual loon. Go ahead.
Bill, and by the way, as always, thank you so much for having me.
Sure.
One of the things that we've seen, though, has been near unanimous support among the most hardened, horrible, racist folks. I'm not talking about conservatives of goodwill. Do you know I'm having an evangelical pastor come address my class this week? So we're not talking about conservative people of goodwill. What I'm saying is we're looking at websites like the Daily Stormer, which encourage their supporters to harass minorities. We're seeing horrible incidents
but
involving...
they've always done that. They've always done that.
What we're seeing now, if you look at something I said on another network 4 years ago, when I was asked, who do these hate groups support? Is it John McCain? Is it Mitt Romney? I said no. This time, we've seen Euro-nationalist groups come out and support
but you
Donald
know why
Trump, and
that
he is
is. You know why
Pardon
that
me?
is. You know why they came out and supported Trump. You know why.
Well, it's because of this Euro-nationalist message.
No, because of the wall. It was as simple as that. Because of the wall. He was the only one that said we're going to keep out drug dealers and people who shouldn't come here because they don't have proper papers, and people from Syria.
Please.
Come on, that's why they support him.
Bill, if I may, though, not all these statements were policy driven, and you must acknowledge that there have been bigoted statements relating to undocumented crime. Undocumented people have a lower crime rate than the general public at large, for instance, and attacking a Mexican-American judge's
the judge thing was because of a civil beef that he's involved with, and he said, because I said built the wall, I can't get a fair play.
Bill,
I didn't think that was a smart
stuff
thing,
from
Professor.
White supremacists.
But you have to extrapolate the data, and the data says at this point in American history, the incidents of hate crime that we know about are very low. very low.
The FBI just showed an increase just today, and we had a 67% increase.
Yeah, but the numbers are
67%
infinitesimal.
increase against Muslims. Bill, if I can't talk, I can't talk.
Hey, Professor, if you don't want to know the stats are 215,
Bill, I collect the stats, and
257 incidents.
Bill, and I called it in
257.
September. Bill, and we also know the Bureau of Justice Statistics in their victimization surveys say that hate crimes are probably closer to 300,000. We know that many of them are unreported, and sure,
all right. We can't deal with unreported. We have to look. The FBI stat says anti-Muslim high bias crimes in 2015, 257 in a nation of 330 million.
Which is the second
people.
highest that we've had since we've recorded this stuff.
257. All right, Professor.
Bill, we also have non-criminal incidents as well that we have to engage too, and we have to look at social media. There's a whole bunch of stuff that does not come under the criminal law.
I don't think there's any comparison of what's going on right now. We appreciate very good debate, very robust debate, Professor. Thank you. Plenty more ahead as the factor moves along this evening. Will President Trump punish sanctuary cities? Tonight and also tomorrow, take a hard look at that question. Back in follow-up segment tonight, sanctuary cities, the mayors of Los Angeles, New York City, and Chicago, all saying they will not obey federal immigration law.
To be clear about what Chicago is, it always will be a sanctuary city. To all those who are, after Tuesday's election, very nervous, there's filled with anxiety has been spoken to, you are safe in Chicago.
So the question becomes, what will President Trump do to enforce immigration law in the sanctuary cities when he takes office? Joining us now from Boston, Marianne Marsh, and from Washington, Katie Pavlich. So you want to make a prediction on what Trump's going to do? Katie?
Well, I think that he will probably call on Congress to strip some of the funding that goes to these sanctuary cities. And I also think that he's going to direct Homeland Security to go in and raid these cities to take out some of the worst elements that live there. The city mayors can protect illegal immigrants all that they want to by not turning them over with local law enforcement. They have nothing that they can do to prevent the federal government and ICE from coming in to conduct those raids. So I think that's probably where he's going to start. And I don't think it's surprising that in places like Chicago, where Mexican cartels are running the show and the violence that's going on in that city, that you're seeing Rahm Emanuel protect that. It really is a shame.
What do you say, Marianne?
Look, it's hard to argue that it's a good idea to keep a convicted felon who's also an undocumented immigrant in the United States, even when it's at the behest of law enforcement, which it normally is. The reason we have sanctuary cities is because the immigration system is broken. That's the real problem. We're not going to sanctuary city our way out of this problem. We're not going to deport our way out of this problem. When you look at the fact that Barack Obama has already deported 2.5 million undocumented immigrants, and we only deported 2 million between 1892 and 1997, that tells you a lot. And we're not going to build a fence our way out of this problem.
Do you think that Trump is going to cut off the money to Chicago and the other sanctuary cities?
I think the smarter move would be to go to Congress, which Republicans...
Smarter move is not what I'm asking. I'm asking if he's going to fulfill his campaign promise and cut the money off.
If he does, he's making a political mistake, because he would get further if he went to the House and the Senate, put immigration reform on the table, and said, let's fix this problem as an operational problem, not a political problem.
But I believe that President Trump, when he takes office, is going to say, by executive order, Katie, not by a fiat of Congress, because that'll take forever. They'll filibuster in the Senate. You know how it goes. By executive order, he's going to freeze. He's going to freeze money to certain cities, put it in escrow, put it aside, and say, unless you obey federal law and hold these people when we tell you to hold them, okay, you're not getting any federal money. That's going to be huge. But I think he's going to have to do it.
The problem with the executive order bill is that, unfortunately, if that's the way you want it to go, Congress controls the money to these cities, not the president. And if people want to complain about President Obama's executive orders, they shouldn't allow Donald Trump to do the same, going around Congress when it's Congress's job to determine the future of the spending. Well, he can do both, though. As Marianne pointed out, he can say, look, I want, I want a fiat by Congress as well, but in the meantime, I'm going to temporarily suspend it. That's not how it works.
Well, he can do it. He has the power to do it.
Well, he has the power to do it, but
Yeah.
it would probably be illegal. And so, if people are going to complain for 8 years about President Obama abusing his authority with executive action, if Donald Trump wants to strip funding from these sanctuary cities, which he should, he has a majority in the House and the Senate now. He can ask them on day one to
what
look
about
at
the
stripping
Senate
that
filibuster,
funding.
though? You'll never get it through there. You never get it through. That's why case law
That's
got
not
killed.
necessarily true.
That's
I
not
think
true.
a lot of people want
That's not
criminals deported in these sanctuary
We
cities.
saw it in the case law sanctuary city vote. The Democrats wouldn't do it. Go ahead, Marianne.
Well, here's the difference, Bill. I think, look, Trump's already backed off. I'm going to deport 11 million people.
He's not going to
He's
do
already
that.
backed off. He's all right, and he's already backed off. It's not going to be a wall. It might be kind of a fence. If he's really smart, he goes to Congress, puts it on the table, puts real immigration reform on the table, and then you take
forever.
away from everyone who opposed him. No. You take away from everyone who opposed him. You know what? He sounds a little more reasonable than I thought he was going to. We might actually fix the problem and not have sanctuary
All right,
cities,
well, we'll
not
see.
have to deport people, and not have to have a wall.
I just think he's going to make a statement. I do think he's going to make a statement on this. I could be
Short-sighted.
wrong. You guys could be right. We have the tape. And you can scorn and mock me if you're right. Ladies, thank
We're
you.
going to mind.
We'll come right back. President Obama holds a press conference. Charles Krauthammer will have some thoughts on how the Obama-Trump relationship is evolving. Love that word. Thanks for staying with us in Bill O'Reilly, a personal story segment tonight. President Obama held a press conference this afternoon. Here's a highlight.
The incoming administration doesn't have to put out a huge number of fires. They may want to take the country in a significantly different direction. But they've got time to consider what exactly they want to achieve. And that's a testament to the tremendous work that my team's done over the last 8 years.
Joining us now from Washington, Charles Krauthammer. You think Trump's going to feel that way? That, hey, the president's handing me off a pretty under control situation. I can take my time about doing what I want to do. I mean, that was what Marianne and Katie were just saying. Well, I don't have to rush into the sanctuary cities. He can do all this congressional stuff, which of course will take years. I think Trump's going to go in there and shake it up pretty fast. What say you?
Well, I mean, Obama's saying I did such a good job.
Yeah.
The country's in such great shape. I'm sure they're going to make a few changes here and there. But if that's the case, how come he and his party got crushed? This is a man who said, I'm not on the ballot, but my legacy is. If you don't go out and support me, I will treat it as a personal insult. Well, he's just been delivered one of the biggest personal insults in the history of American politics, and he's pretending that everything is okay. It's not, and that's the reason his side lost. And it's larger. This is sort of overlooked. There were a lot of reasons. Trump's political instincts, of course, Hillary being the worst candidate we've seen in a generation. But I think what's been overlooked is the Obama legacy is really such a disaster that it was very easy for people to reject him. This is no different from 2010 and 2014 when Obama himself was at the top of the ticket. In 08 and 12, he wins because he's a charismatic candidate, a great campaigner, and an attractive guy. But when he runs and he's not on the ticket, he's running on his policies in the midterms and, of course, last week, his side has gotten shellacked each time.
Okay, at the beginning of the program, and I wanted to get your opinion on this, and the talking points, I said that one of the reasons that Trump won was that more than 60 million Americans did not feel included in the Obama administration's policies. And it's ironic because the protesters now are going, oh, we're afraid that we're not going to have inclusion anymore. And they don't even know that half the country wasn't included in the first place. Am I crazy?
No, I think look, everybody has their own, left and right have different definitions of inclusion. What happened was this huge constituency, the white working class in particular, the ones who delivered to him the 3 states, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, that put him over the top, traditionally Democratic, this white working class felt excluded. They felt that the Democrats are running a country with favoritism, affirmative action here, about political correctness there, sort of controlling speech, controlling favors, all for minorities, which you can argue is justified in some cases because of historical discrimination, etc. But nonetheless, the one constituency in the country that was being economically crushed and kind of socially demoted was the white working class, and that was the appeal of Trump. That's how he won. So in a sense, they were excluded
Yep.
in that sense.
That's right.
Not deliberately, but by default. Everybody else got promoted, and they were left
Oh, it
behind.
was deliberate in some of the social issues like late-term abortion and things like that, and the Obamacare mandate that everybody had to follow what they wanted. That was the
and also in a very aggressive secularism
Right.
that marginalized and squeezed and condescended to the religious folks,
Mocked them even.
who are also the ones. I mean, if you look at the one characteristic that divides that divides Democrats from Republicans, it's church attendance. That's
Yep.
sort of the easiest way to divide them.
All right, I'm glad you agree with me finally on this exclusionary stuff, because I really felt that was an important memo. Thank you, Charles.
Look, over time, you will eventually stumble on the truth, and it just happened again this week.
Okay. What is on deck? Americans who did not vote, should we scorn them? Moments away. Back in the book segment tonight, Waters World, it's estimated that more than 97 million eligible voters didn't show up last Tuesday. So we sent Waters to the Cradle of Liberty, Philadelphia, to find some Americans who did not vote.
Did you vote on Tuesday?
I did not. I did not vote in the election.
Did you two party animals vote?
No, I did not.
Honestly, I just wasn't registered.
What? Why?
Did you vote?
No, I didn't. My family wanted Hillary. A lot of my friends did. A lot of my friends wanted Trump. I said, guess what? I'm not even going into that.
I didn't want the blood on my hands, honestly, to tell you the truth.
You didn't want to be a part of democracy?
Not this time.
You serious, Clark?
How do you feel about all these non-voters?
I think they are an incredible disappointment and an embarrassment. It's a responsibility.
I felt like it wasn't really going to matter whether I voted or not.
After the election, I did a lot of research, and I honestly wish I did vote, but...
Usually, you should do the research before the election.
It's true.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
What were you doing instead of voting?
Being with my girl.
What'd you do with your girl?
Went and had some lunch. I had a chicken sandwich. She had the same thing.
What happened after lunch?
Nothing.
No kiss.
Are you having regrets that you did not vote?
Not really.
So you're okay with Trump as president?
No, I'm not.
Okay, you got me.
What's the first thing you'd like to see Trump do as president?
Quit.
I want him to make amends with the people who protested.
Get over it. She lost. Shed your little bit of tears, act like a baby, and go home and man up.
You can act like a man. What's the matter with you?
What's the first thing you want to see him do?
Stop his racist comments.
Do you think the election was rigged?
Yes,
In whose favor?
Donald Trump.
Do you think Trump rigged the election?
We don't know yet.
He really needs to do what he said about the immigrants. The people coming into this country are bringing nothing but chaos, crime, and murder.
Who do you want to see Trump appoint into his cabinet? Do you know what a cabinet is?
Not exactly.
I'd like to see a more liberal cabinet.
Maybe Trump can appoint Bernie Sanders to a cabinet.
Would love that. I think he'd make a great Secretary of Defense.
Are you high right now?
No.
A little bit.
What are you people? On dope?
Leonardo DiCaprio. He's good with the environmental issues, I know that much.
You listen to me and you listen well. Do you think Trump should appoint Elizabeth Warren to the cabinet?
I don't think that would be a bad idea.
What would she be? Secretary of Indian Affairs? Who do you want to see Trump appoint to his cabinet?
No one. Hostility. I like that.
Do you think I would have survived in colonial times?
I don't know, Jess. You look a little weak there, sir.
Do you know who I am?
No.
I'm Waters, and this is my world.
I'm Carmen, and this is my world.
Jeez, get me out of here.
Here's Waters. So Carmen sprung for the chicken sandwich.
yeah. Up on 8th and Sampson, he told me. He doesn't even know who his girlfriend voted for.
He doesn't even know what
He has no idea. It's none of his business, he said.
Philadelphia has great characters.
They do.
don't
I'm from Philly.
I know you are. And look at you.
Exactly.
So the guy who didn't want anybody appointed to the cabinet, he wanted to punch you, right?
I know. I think I would have dodged it. He looked a little slow.
He looked a little blind. And the other two guys, and these guys were looking at, they were a little abuzz.
Yeah, I think so. At least one of them was.
And
Bernie
that's Jesus,
Sanders,
right?
Secretary of Defense, striking fear in the heart of
I
ISIS.
know. And who was the guy, the colonial guy? Who was he supposed to be?
He was just in character, leading tours.
What character? Is he supposed to be somebody?
Yeah, he's probably like William Penn. I don't know.
William Penn. William Penn didn't wear a dopey hat like that.
You sure about
that? He was a rich guy. All right, Waters, thank you very much. And a quick update on the Spin Stops Here live shows. Waters is now joined Miller and me. Oh, my God. The show in Washington State at the Tacoma Dome, more than 90% sold out. So if you want to see us on March 25th, you got to get on it. Westbury, Long Island, just about sold out as well. We're adding a matinee